Morning, ma'am. I welcome you to this 5-day FDP sponsored by AICT ATAL and organized by Department of Science. So, participants, for our next session, we have with us our next speaker, Professor Ankita Sharma. She is an associate professor and head of Department of Humanities at IIT Jodhpur, and she will be briefing us today on monitoring mental health of technical students. Before we start our session, I would like to first invite my colleague, Ms. Sangeeta Kumari ma'am, to give a brief introduction of Professor Ankita Sharma. Ma'am, you can go
Hello everyone. It gives me immense pleasure to introduce and welcome our next speaker, Dr. Ankita Sharma. Dr. Ankita Sharma is an associate professor of psychology and head of Department of Humanities and Social Science at Indian Institute of Technology, Jodhpur. She is a gerontologist and positive psychologist. Her major research work in on aging, wisdom, decision making, and social cognition. She has more than 10 years of academic experience and she is diligent researcher. She is actively involved in student well-being activities and she is a soft skill trainer. Now I welcome Dr. Ankita Sharma ma'am. Sir, ma'am please.
Thank you so much for such a warm welcome. Dr. Abhishek, am I audible?
Yes, ma'am. You are clearly audible.
Okay, and what about my video? I hope video feed is also coming.
No, ma'am. Video is not available.
It's not?
No, ma'am.
Okay, just give me a second so I can check. It's on from my side.
I guess, ma'am, it's not appearing.
Actually, I don't seem to have access even for sharing my screen. Can you please check with the technical team there?
Just a second. That should already be I'll just assign the presenter. Just give me a moment. And please try now. Please try to unmute yourself and turn on your camera again. Please. I guess it would have muted you, so you have to unmute yourself again. Am I audible? Uh, you have left the meeting. We are having some like connection issues. it out in just a few minutes.
Share some of my insight, what I have got so far in my teaching experience. So, should we start, or there is something more I should know about what has happened so far, or any details, anything?
I can give you some brief about the program as well as the audience. So, most of the audience here is teachers from technical institutions, and some are also teachers from secondary school. So, we would be teaching 10 plus 11 plus students currently in their school education. And we also have with us some people from industry. So, we are scientists or engineers at some reputed organizations. Over the last 5 days, what we have been working on was applications of AI in modern scenarios. But as a this is a very good initiative from AICT that we have also expected us to include one session that could talk about mental health, or let's say talk about emotional health, talk about in general the livelihood of technical people, because that is what we generally miss out when we are like going all tech, and like we forget that it is ultimately this body that we have to use for all the purposes. So I guess this is like a really good opportunity that EICT has given us to invite you to this program and have a very good and intellectual session from you to all of us.
Okay, great. Thank you so much. So, I'm happy that I am totally in sync with the whole idea. So, what I'll be talking today about is obviously monitoring mental health. And when I say monitoring mental health, I am trying to talk about uh, being able to identify when somebody needs help. Maybe that's somebody else. because at times knowing that you need help is much more difficult than knowing something about other people. So I'll be focusing on that, and I'll just give you a very brief overview of what we should keep in mind as a person. And then obviously, great that we are talking about technical aspects. So I'll be talking about digital well-being as well. So I'm happy to be here, and let's start the session. So just let me share the screen. And also I hope, as I had requested that people log into slido.com. So if people who are right now in the session haven't logged in yet, please log in, and there'll be a code given. I'll be telling you about the code, and then you should join the session through that, so that there are certain activities what we can do within the session itself. Okay. Yes. So I'll request everybody, while I'm giving the introductory part, to please go to your web browser and then log in there, because it's another way of interacting. Uh, in this whole technical and digital era, this is something what we are missing. So the fun of having a session face to face is something different. I don't want to miss out on that. So right now I'm talking to a screen. Thank God at least Abhishek is talking back. Otherwise, most of the time we are talking to a screen, which is very boring, which I don't like. We need human touch. That's the most important part. And specifically when I'm talking about mental health, that is what we need. So that is one of my attempt to keep that human touch in some form alive within this session, okay, within this digital communication what we are having. So let's start today's session, and I'll give you a cue when we have to start with the Slido. I do not need to talk much about myself. I am already introduced, but my simple introduction is that I am Ankita Sharma and I'm a psychologist. Okay, and anyone, if you wish, you can contact me on my email ID. It's written here. So let's start. Today, in next, I was given 2 hours, so I hope I still have 2 hours. If not, I can finish it 1.5 also, depending upon whatever time you have. Within this time, what I'm going to give you is some of the perceptions we have, and we don't realize it. Some of those perceptions are incorrect one, which are called as a misconception, and that's the most important key for us to identify some of the wrong ideas we have about mental health and illness, because until unless we know what do we understand incorrectly, there's no chance of rectifying that. So we will start with that, and then I'll give you a bit of factual information of how the world, how the formal agencies are looking at health and illness as such, and then very specifically how mental health and mental illness is looked at. There are certain other related terms which are used. You must have heard those, like happiness, well being. What does that mean? I'll give you a brief about it. Then, another thing, especially for us Indian, is very important to know is that the whole idea of health has changed slightly. It has gone into different direction, and maybe we are still stuck to the age-old phenomena and ideologies. We need to understand that. So I'll give you a brief of that. And then I'll talk about that if we look at a student population and let's say colleagues around you, people around you, what are certain things you can pay a very keen attention to? And if you observe them, if you see them, what you should do is two things. First, be available to them. And second, if you feel they need help, promote the seeking help in others. Ask them to go and see someone. So, what is that? I'll talk about it. And then I'll talk about being too positive and then digital well being. So, this is what I'm going to cover quickly so that you have at least a basic idea of this whole broad field. I won't get into the any of the details of that. All right. So, let's start. Now, As I said, I'll start with perception and misconception. So now I want everyone to go on Slido, log in the key there. If anybody is having problem, I guess they can talk to us, and I and Abhishek will try to help you with that. So people who have joined on Slido, so slido.com, keyword is written on your screen also right now. And what I want you to do is, when you hear word mental illness, what other word comes to your mind? Just write those words. It can be more than one word, a sentence, whatever you think. I'll give you 2 to 3 minutes to do that. Please go ahead and do it. Let's see what you think about it. Yeah. Mm. Yes, yes. So this MS Team you can minimize, go to browser and click on a Slido. So it won't be linked up with this. That needs to be separately done. Let's see if people are able to do that. I see that some people are actually writing up. There are some 11 people have already given thoughts. Okay, interesting. Okay, nice. Okay, so now I request participants, people who haven't written yet, it's okay. Let that be. Don't close the Slido window. Just come back to your MS Team back, and let's have a look at what you see right now. I hope you can see this word cloud on this Team video. Right, amazing. Now look at this cloud. What are the words you see? You see illness, fine, depression, the biggest term which seems that quite a few people have written that, unnecessary thoughts, someone has written madness, out of box, anxiety disorder, lack of sleep, ADHD, so many diseases, some deviation, mood swings, so many things are written, right? I am happy that most of you have actually written about actual diseases like depression, PTSD, then there is neurosis. Amazing. But problematic part is that people have also written about that it's hyper imagination. So you think hyper imagination is a mental illness? It seems. OCD, yes, it's a mental illness. Do you really think that all of these things, what we have written here, should be included in mental illness? So, do you really think that deviation in thoughts is an illness? Or a person who's stressed is an illness? Any health problem is illness? That is something what we need to look at, and we will look at that. Let's go back to Slido again and do the next part. So, if you go to Slido, you will see that a question will be coming to you and you can give an answer to that. So you have to quickly give an answer. I have given few seconds to you, and my question is that would you give an important position to mentally ill person? So let's say you are a recruiter, okay? Would you appoint a person about whom you know that the person has, let's say, depression? Okay. And by the way, the results are 50-50. So all the people who are here right now, half of them are saying that they will give the position. Half is saying no, they won't give the position. Okay. Let's see the next question. Okay. Next question. Mentally ill person are dangerous. What do you think? Give me an answer. All right. 77% people say not necessarily. 15% is still saying yes. 8% are saying no. We'll see whether what is exactly correct and what we can think about it. Let's look at the next one. And don't worry, there won't be too many. Mentally ill people should be isolated. What do you think? Should they be separated from other people or they can live in society, community, family? What do you think? Okay, amazing. 96% people are saying they should not be isolated. 4% people are saying they should be. Okay. Now, now you can close that Slido window, come back to MS Team, and let's talk about what we just did. I said that tell me the uh, words which comes to your mind when we talk about mental illness. Quite a few of you have talked about actual diseases which happens, which are quite popular also now due to possibly media and what we hear around us. For example, depression, stress, OCD, mood swings. Yes, some of the most popular one. But some people also wrote about deviation in thoughts, hyperimagination, stress, worries, hypertension. Do you really think that this comes in the category of illness? And if so, possibly all of us at some point of time in our life will be mentally ill. Is that how we need to think about it? The biggest problem of mental health, what we are seeing right now, and especially during this pandemic time, that with physical health, with physical illness, whatever we have got or we may not have got, people around us have got something, we all were stressed out at least up to some extent. We all were possibly became delusional. All of us were like really shit scared of not getting infected, right? None of us wanted to get infected or for any of our loved ones to get infected. Now, should we actually call that as an illness? Or is it something which is not really signifies at illness and something else? Another problem what we face, and maybe you will agree with me here, that even when we know that somebody has got illness, somebody has got identified diagnosed mental illness, the way we treat people, the way we react toward those people, it's something very weird, it's something very different. Many of us think, and that I'm talking from my personal experience, we think that if a physical problem is there, then physical problem is actually a real problem, whereas a mental problem, a mental illness is just in a mind, and if a person think correctly about it, they'll be able to handle it. What we need to understand that mental illnesses are as true problematic as any physical illness. They also have physiological reasons and or at least physiological expressions. Some of the very absurd statements what we use when we see somebody suffering from mental illness. uh, I want to show you a video where it's a sarcastic take on that the way we talk about mental illness, if in the same fashion we talk about physical illness, how would it feel? So let's have a look at that. And I hope that the audio will be visible here. If it doesn't come to you audio, please let me know. I hope audio is available. Okay, maybe I need to share it again. Yeah, I know. We need to add include system audio. Then it happens. Yeah. Just give me a moment. I'm doing that. Okay, I hope it will work now. Let's see. And let me know if you are able to hear.
Listen,
Great.
I know you're sick and all, but are you even trying to get better?
Hey, look at it this way. There's plenty of people out there that have it worse off than you do.
You need to stop focusing on all the bad things in life and just try to enjoy it. It's all in your head.
I don't think you need to be taking medication every day just to feel normal. Don't you think it's changing you?
Listen, you really just need to suck it up. Like, everybody goes through this and you're just feeling sorry for yourself.
Why don't you just go to the doctor?
You can't. My insurance doesn't cover the flu.
Oh, shit. Steven.
Man, that's broken. You need to see a doctor.
Seriously, I'm fine. I can get better on my own.
Right. So, I hope this gave you some insight. Let me tell you an anecdote. This has happened with me here at IITJ. So, one of our student was going through a really rough patch, and then we sent him to our counselor and then our psychiatrist. The psychiatrist prescribed certain medicines. After a few days, I called that student again, and then I was like, "You are still not attending classes. What's happening? Are you okay?" He's like, "I am trying to figure it out." I was like, "Aren't you taking your medicine?" He's like, "I took it for 2 days and then I realized that I can handle it by myself." The problem is that we think that for a fever, we need to take a complete course of a medicine, right? Antibiotics. If a doctor prescribe antibiotic for 5 days, you won't stop it in between and say that after this I handle myself. But if anybody is suffering from any mental illness, first off, they won't be accepting it so easily, because then they will think that other will label them as maybe mad, maybe weak. Secondly, if they identify it, accept it, they go to doctor, they don't really follow doctor's prescription because they think that it's just in their head and they can handle it. Is that really true? And that's where the whole crux of a problem is. It's not only about ourselves, how we think about ourselves if we are going through this problem. When we think like this, that's how we recommend it to others also. And that's why it's very important that we know, that we understand the basic factual part about it. And accordingly, we handle the situation, whether for ourselves or anyone nearby us. Okay, so now let's start with some of the factual information, and I hope this will be helpful for you. So first, let's talk about that. How do we look at the health itself? Now, the most recognized institution or agency across is World Health Organization, and World Health Organization way back at the middle of the 19th century itself, they defined health as a complete physical, mental, and social well-being, not merely absence of disease. So the focus is that being healthy doesn't mean that I don't have any disease per se. So I say, okay, I don't have diabetes, I don't have hypertension, I do not have any major disease. That means I'm healthy. No, that's not. WHO says that's not sufficient to say that we are healthy. We are healthy when we are able to feel physical, mental, and social well being. What is that? I'll talk about it. But though WHO said that physical, mental, and social well-being is also important. One term they use in their definition, that is complete physical, mental, and social well-being, that attracted a lot of questions because nobody can have a complete physical, mental, and social well-being. What does that mean? So let's say I do not have any disease. I feel that physically I'm also okay, mentally also I'm okay today, and I have a good social relationship. I have people around me, I have a good group relationship, I have a good relationship with my colleagues, everything is okay. But is that so every day, throughout day? Maybe after like today's evening I'll have a body ache. Okay, I will have a very tiring day and I'll have a body ache. That's not a disease, but if you're tired, obviously you will feel body ache. So it's not complete physical well-being. There is some problem, a tiny one. Or maybe if I have too much of overload of work, I may feel mentally stressed out. And if I'm feeling mentally stressed out, then aren't I healthy and happy? If I look at the WHO's definition of complete physical, mental, and social well being, then I am not. So, what should be the definition? As a principle, that's a definition which most of the people follow, but as a more understanding one, what is needed is that probably a slightly better definition of health, what we need. So, three things can be there. First, that yes, for being able to be called healthy, we should not have any major disease or impairment, because if there is some major disease and impairment, it actually obstructs your health or healthy behavior. You can't have that lifestyle. Second, health, if let's say a person does not have any disease, good, but the person is still not healthy if they are not able to handle their day-to-day demands. Their situation is such that they are not able to handle everything. The kind of familial responsibilities they have, the kind of professional or educational responsibilities they have, if they are not able to handle that, if they are having problem in adapting and adjusting with that, then that's actually a sign of that there is something wrong. There can be a psychological problem there. So that's the first indication. Now, third part is the most important part, that health is a state of a balance. It's an equilibrium. That means there is a range. So when I say that disease is not there, but still I'm not able to handle my life situation, life demands. Should I call myself unhealthy if I'm not able to handle it at all? Or sometimes I'm able to handle it, sometimes I'm not. So when we take into account the third part, that health is a state of balance, sometimes we move slightly toward facing problems when there are days when there is too much of problem and we find ourselves incapable of handling it. And sometimes we have really good days when we are able to settle everything and when we are able to enjoy ourselves. So we keep oscillating between slightly problematic to a very good day. And all of these should be considered healthy unless for a very long time we are continuously struggling with our daily demands. So, if we understand the WHO's definition that health is a state of balance, a equilibrium with physical, mental, and social well being plus absence of disease, then we are talking about actually being healthy. Now, moving to the mental health and mental illness part. First thing what we need to understand, that this physical body what we have, we cannot segregate our mental part with it. Our body and our psyche, our psychology, they both are connected. If something is wrong with the body, it will impact your mood, your thought, your psyche. And similarly, if something is wrong with you mentally, psychologically, it will impact your body. Okay, so first keep in mind that this dichotomy doesn't exist. It's a philosophical problematic point which all of us have sort of accepted. Internally, we think like that. We need to change that. Now, moving to the mental health part, mental health is defined as a state of well-being where a person is able to identify their abilities, they are able to handle daily life stresses, and they are able to work productively and contribute. So you are mentally healthy when not only you do not have any mental diseases, but also you are satisfied with your life, you are happy with your life, and you are able to be productive, contribute something in society, in community. Again, understand that the concept of equilibrium and balance is uh, uh, important here as well. There will be certain days when you are stressed out, when you are not able to mentally handle your life stresses, but it's about that balance, that range. But generally, if you are able to mostly handle your life stresses and mostly you are able to contribute to something, then you have a mental health. This internal equilibrium is important. When you have set of people who are close to you, you have set of people where you are able to maintain relationship, you have that support with them, and you are able to provide support to them. All of these defines your mental health. Now, talking about the mental illness part, mental illness, understand very clearly that mental illness is only those conditions when there are drastic changes in your mental processes. We can divide mental processes in three major categories. Again, this is just for the sake of understanding. There isn't any, that contrast kind of a difference. But emotions, your thinking, and the behavior, what you do, if they are really significant change and deviation, then on top of that, at least two more condition needs to be fulfilled. First, that these changes are so significant that they interrupt your day-to-day functioning in your social life, in your personal familial life, and in your work life for significant amount of time. A usual time frame taken is 6 months. So if an individual shows a significant change in their behavior, in their thought process, usually the way they behave, if they show these changes and that disrupt their life for at least 6 months period, then only we say that the person has mental illness. Okay. Then when we talk about mental diseases, every mental disease, some of you have listed OCD, obsessive compulsive disorder, or depression, mood swings, which is called as a bipolar disorder, which may include mood swings toward a very positive side, elated mood state, and depression, so bipolar disorder. Then schizophrenia is there, even dementia is there. Dementia, you may have heard of Parkinson's disease. There are whole set of diseases which have their specific symptoms, but these three become the core qualifying condition for any psychiatrist or psychotherapist, clinical psychologist, to diagnose a person for having mental illness. Okay, so being stressed out, feeling low, feeling sort of, languishing, feeling empty within, all of these can be part of life. All of these can be phases which come and go depending upon your life situation, and also at times depending upon your physical condition. I can specifically talk about, let's say, middle age men, middle age and onwards men, and women are at all ages. Certain hormonal changes brings out these mood related changes in your day-to-day life. That's not mental illness. Okay, so what we really need to think and understand, that every small mood change, every small feeling of stress, every small feeling of low is not mental illness. It's a very normal, typical reaction to life stresses. What we need to do is not to ignore them, but pay attention to them, try to identify what is the reason, what is the cause behind it, and trying to address that. Secondly, when we are able to differentiate between that this is just normal typical reaction and this is not, this is something really longer than what is appropriate, then possibly it's going toward mental illness or it has become mental illness. So when we are able to differentiate between these three conditions, typical reaction, going toward illness, and actual illness, our reaction toward that, our suggestions for that should be different. And we need to be very conscious about it, because a person who is feeling any of these three situations, they are very vulnerable for the way other people react to them, the way other people talk to them. So it becomes a responsibility of each one of us to be sensitive about it. Recently, I was watching a movie, and it's a documentary movie. It was on suicide, and we can talk about it because all of us are mature enough here to understand that this is something which is very frequent everywhere around the world, and especially in India. A very identified phenomena in literature is that any person who is thinking of suicide, they do a particular behavior which is called as a mercy plea. Mercy plea means that you will find in their communication, whenever they are talking with someone, some indication of this thought they are having of doing something drastic with their life. And there'll be some sort of message that they want someone to save them, that is called as a mercy plea. You may have heard news in a recent few days that you see that the person posted on Facebook or somewhere and then did some act, committing suicide or attempting suicide. What we need there, what can we do there? Many a times a bit of sensitivity of one person saves life. Here at IITJ, what we have done is we have professional help, but we also have a big team of student volunteers. What they do is every student, every especially first year students, because they are the most susceptible group, many of them come out of their family life for the first time in hostels, and a lot of issues are there. Every student is assigned with a senior student. They are mostly like a peer mentors, a friend, a senior friend, whose job is just to talk to them, take care of them, and if they feel anything odd, they are supposed to come back to us. They are not supposed to treat them, they are not supposed to handle it by themselves. These peer mentors are supposed to come to us. And this whole system has worked wonderfully for us so far. It's such an amazing system. And if you talk to any IITJ student, you can ask them about counseling team, and you can listen to the kind of feedbacks they give. What this experience has taught me, that a bit of help, a bit of being very consciously observing people around you makes such a big difference. And that is why when we say monitoring for mental health, it's very important, especially in today's time when many of us are struggling to live with our life, to handle these new changes in our life. We are meeting right now through this medium, and I feel very odd right now. I don't know how many of you are listening to me. If you were face to face, if I was looking at your face right now, I would know who is looking at me, who's smiling right now, who's nodding right now, who's dozing right now, whatever that may be. So each one of us are handling different struggles right now. How can we extend the support? How can we monitor for others? What can we do for others? That's something really needed. So please understand that we need to differentiate between a situation where these stresses, these low mood, the at times anger outburst are just a typical reaction. When this is extending, this kind of a behavior is going on for slightly longer period of time, then possibly they are going toward developing a mental condition or psychological condition. And if it is going on for really long time, then we need to tell that person to immediately seek help. So please understand these distinctions. Now, moving ahead, there are three concepts what I would like to talk about. Okay, I talked about mental illness. But what about this whole functioning what we can have? Maybe some of us are doing okay. Some of us may be doing really well. Some of us in this whole lockdown period, at least I know some of my friends, they have done remarkable research. Okay, they have got really good patents, they have got really good publications, and they are doing really well. So they are probably flourishing, but some are not. What is this whole concept? So I was talking about differentiating between these three states, and I gave you those three states only in terms of the problematic area. Now I want to give you the whole continuum. So instead of looking at this whole text, forget about that. Let's look at this graph. And what you can understand here is that most of us actually exist somewhere here, the middle category, the moderate mental health. That means we keep on having this equilibrium shifting, sometimes toward this negative side where we feel problems, sometimes toward the positive side. So some days are good, you are really productive. Some days you are just lazy, you don't feel like doing anything. So most of us exist here. Very few exist toward this flourishing side. That means they have really high level of contribution, they are really feeling happy, they are really satisfied, not only on one day, for a really stretch of a time. But other than this positive side, there can be people here. And this languishing is something very important what I want to talk about. So mental disorder, yes, there are people with mental diseases, they need proper clinical care. But many a times we ignore this set, people who are languishing, and that is why I'm saying that I would like to talk about these. Languishing is a feeling, as I was saying, that when you feel that you are stuck in life, when you feel that nothing is happening in your life, you feel that you are really not able to contribute, you feel empty within, you feel that either you are either overwhelmed or you feel there is nothing significant happening in your life, what you really like, what you really would like to do. That feeling is called languishing. And when this languishing kind of a feeling persists for slightly longer period of time, it's very detrimental for your mental health as well as physical health. Here, another anecdote. I hope you know that in Hindi also we call that chinta chita saman hai, right? Stress is something that if a high level of stress is there for a very long period of time, the kind of impact it gives you, not only on your mental health but also physical health, is almost like, it reduces your life years gradually. It keeps cutting down some years from your life. Take an example. People who are really stressed out for long period of time, they are highly susceptible for developing peptic ulcer. I hope you know about ulcer. One of the leading causes of migraine or headache is stress. There is a whole category which is called stress migraine, right? Hypertension, you all know that it is highly associated with stress. Cardiac issues, heart related disease, that is highly related with stress. So imagine languishing, people who are feeling languishing, obviously they are stressed out for quite a long period of life, and that means they are feeling stressed out, the kind of repercussions it can have. How can we help those people? What can we do about that? What can we do about ourselves? Do we know when we are languishing? Do we know the feeling what you are doing? Each one of you, for a moment, take a pause. Take a pause of, let's say, 30 seconds. I'll give you 30 seconds. I'll count to it. Just take a deep breath and think overall in your life, what is a ratio of good things which are there in your life with which you are happy, and what's a good thing which are making you sad, unhappy, challenged? What is the ratio for yourself? Just think. I'm starting the countdown now, and really take a pause. It's a good time to just be with your own self. Let's start. 1. 15 seconds. If you can, just hold your hands. Both of your hands, hold it as if somebody else is holding it. Go back to thinking about your own life. Few more seconds. Come back. I would like you to share this ratio you have got. So the positive one first and then the negative one. So let's say mine is, I see 40% good in my life and 60% not so good. So my ratio is 40-60. Just put it in chat box if you feel comfortable. If not, that's okay. I hope you did it. I hope you gave these few seconds to yourself to take a pause and think about it. Because towards the end, I will talk about what you can do if you are feeling stagnated, if you are feeling this languishing. And that same applies to somebody else. You can help someone to do that, to be able to handle their languishing feeling. Okay? Let's move forward. And I talked about this different states. Now, when I talk, I keep using this term well-being. And I said that there are multiple related terms. So let's dig slightly more into it and try to understand that when we say a good condition, a health, mental health or well-being, what does that mean? I'll just give you some terms and I won't get into the details, but it's good to know what are the things are important for us to feel mentally healthy and psychological well-being, okay, or well-being in general. So what you see on the screen right now is that there are three major categories which are included within mental health and well-being. They are called psychological well-being, social well-being, and emotional well-being. Usually psychological well-being and social well-being where behavior is very important. Okay, so behavioral component is much more there. When we talk about emotional well-being, it's mostly the feelings you have got, the positive feelings. So for a person to be able to have a high level of well-being or flourishing, as I was talking in the last slide to you, that includes these. So when people feel that, when people accept themselves, they are self-accepting, they are self-compassionate, you accept yourself with all your flaws and all your strengths. So your level of self-acceptance. When you have a good relationship with others, you have some people in your life which are very close to you. When you feel that you are growing, you are becoming better, when you have a purpose in your life, when you know that what you are doing, why you are doing it, when you have a good connection with nature around you, and you feel that you can or you are taking decisions in your life, all of these you will agree is important thing. When you feel like that, you feel good. When you are happy with your own self, you are happy, right? If not, if you are the one who are the most critic of yourself, so something happens and you say you are idiot, you are the most stupid person I have known, this is your fault. If these are the kind of statements you give to yourself, I'm not asking anyone whether that happens to you or not, but I know for sure that many a times when something wrong happens, we blame ourselves. And at times, these statements go on in our mind on a repeat mode. We criticize ourselves, we scold ourselves. And if that is happening, that means we are not accepting ourselves with our flaws. And that's not a happy condition. That's not a fulfilling condition. So that's what I'm talking about. That to feel mentally healthy, what we need is self-acceptance, positive relation, personal growth, purpose, environmental mastery, that means connection with nature and things around us, and autonomy. Then if we look at the social level, okay, we need to feel that there are people who like us the way we are. There are people, we are part of some group, okay, we need to feel that. We need to feel that we are important member of a particular group. We feel that I'm doing something important for the group where I belong to, and I'm integral part of this whole group. If we feel that there is no one in our life where we are part, if you don't have any friend circle, if at your workplace there is no one to whom you can talk to, if there is no one with you can share your thoughts, there is no one, and you feel as if you're totally isolated person. So let's say at your workplace there are people who go on tea breaks, but nobody ever invites you. Would you be happy? I guess not, because that's a human nature, right? So what we need is at personal level, we need acceptance, relationship, purpose, this autonomy, free will, and everything. At a social level, we need to belong to a group, we want to be part of a group. That's important for us. And on top of that, when all of these happens, that contributes to our positive feeling, our happiness level, our satisfaction level, how satisfied you are with your life, and how in general life you like. I would recommend, if you haven't seen a movie, there is a animated movie called Soul. Okay, it's an interesting movie. Some of you may like it, so if you can, please watch it. A very simple story is that there was this school teacher. Okay, he was a music teacher in a school, and he always wanted to become a part of a band. Okay, he wanted to perform. So it's a basically spoiler. Okay, I'm just giving you a gist of it, but you can still watch the movie. This person, he tried his whole life to become part of a band and to perform. Finally, in almost he reached his middle age, and he got a chance. The same day he got a chance, when he was supposed to perform, all of a sudden he died in an accident. Okay, and when he sort of woke up after life, he was not ready to accept it that he died on a day when he got the chance of his life. The whole struggle of him trying to come back to earth to be alive again, the whole movie is on that. And the bottom line of the movie is that he keeps saying that I cannot die, I need to go back to my life again, because purpose of my life is to become musician. Toward the end of the movie, finally, what the message comes, what that person realized is that the purpose of life is to live. That's it. It's not easy to remember that. And maybe it's not applicable to all of us. But this is something which is important for us to feel, to understand the importance and value of things what we have got. In this pandemic, we realize the value of family what we have. We realize the value of health when people around us were falling sick. People around us were losing their family members. People around us were losing their sanity. We realize the value of those, what we in our day to day life take for granted. So, mental health important and it may include all of these factors. Technically, they may sound like all of these things, but we know that in our day to day life, we are seeking these things. We know that these are important for us. Now, I said that it's important to understand the whole idea of development of health and illness. If we understand, if we look at the way things have developed, today we say that health is not only absence of disease, it's also physical, mental, and all of these social well being. But that's not the case. Initially, in ancient time, classical times, that's not how health was seen. You are healthy if God is happy with you. You know, God has given you ashirwad and grace. So on by God's grace, you are healthy. If you're not healthy, it's basically some, divine or some supernatural power. Point is, this is supposed to be an ancient idea, but is this an ancient idea? Even today, we know that, let's take an example of COVID itself. We heard, at least in Rajasthan, I don't know other places. So in Rajasthan, I heard the news that people actually created a temple of Corona Mai and they were doing puja of it. Where is this whole idea is coming from? It's a very typical physical disease, right? So far, we do not have evidences that corona directly leads to any mental illness. A very physical disease, people still believe that there is some supernatural power, there is some divine grace or divine curse, whatever that is causing this. Imagine now a mental illness. First thing what people do, at least people who are not so educated or people, I don't really want to attach it only to education, but also some of the more faith. First thing what people think is that this is something wrong as per, whatever that can be bhoot pret or whatever that is. The local healer practice is very common when it comes to mental illnesses. Where is it coming from? That same idea, ancient idea, that health is basically related to our religious practices, God and entity of God. We're still following that. And you would agree with me on that, that if some person is showing anger outburst, where natural power, but there is something within the environment which may cause illness. So we know that there are conditions which may influence your mental health as well as physical health. So for example, many people are talking about that issues related to radiation and all of that, and that leading to increase in thyroid related problems, right? Hypothyroidism. Similarly, hypothyroidism is directly connected with depressed mood. Also, there are physical environmental situations which may lead to mental illnesses. So there were outbreaks of mental illness problem because of certain chemicals present in environment. That has happened. So gradually we realized and we learned that a person may fall sick because of environmental condition. A very simple thing is that if you are not living in a hygienic condition, forget about anything extreme, that will lead to a illness or problem. Okay, then came the whole idea of that if you are weak, whether physically or psychologically, you will get illness more, right? And this is whole Darwinian concept. Okay, Darwin's concept which says that the survival of fittest. So if you are fit, you will survive, you will not fall sick. And again, from there comes the idea, especially if we talk about psychological or mental illness, that it is taken as an indicator of weakness. Again, a problematic condition. Again, a problematic assumption. It's not about weakness. Because if so, if it is weakness, what should we do? Should we take that person out of society or should we try to rectify it? So first of all, it's not necessarily weakness. It can be any change which can happen to anyone. Okay. Fourth concept is that uh, even if there are certain problems, some people can fight back. Now, fighting back is technically called resilience. So, some of us are really high on resilience. That means no matter what happens, no matter what problems are there, these people face it, they try to fight it, they do not accept defeat very easily. Now, importance of health and resilience has been studied a lot, and even in people with chronic serious illnesses, they have been seen to recover quickly or handle it very well. For example, there are cancer survivors, people who are high on resilience. They have higher chances of survival in cancers which are at least manageable. Okay, so first approach where people are talking about weakness, then there is approach where people are talking about strength. So both goes hand in hand, right? Vis-a-vis. A thing which somebody considered as weakness can be strength for someone else. What matters is the way we interpret it. So the reaction is in our hand, and that's where the whole idea of health changes. And the last part, which is called as a salutogenous approach, focuses on that. Let's talk about what is the salutogenous approach. This whole salutogenous approach was given by a psychologist. His name was Aaron Antonovsky. Aaron Antonovsky talked about that we shouldn't separate illness and health. It's a continuum. And how that happens? So in life, when a stress stimulus comes, a problem comes, what happens is that for any particular individual in any point of time, when a stress comes, that person, if they have certain positive factors, they can fight it back and still maintain their health or well-being, which he called as a ease. Okay, EASE, ease. Whereas for some people, when the stress comes, instead of these positive factors, if they have certain problematic conditions, so let's say their physical condition is not sufficient enough to fight back, their psychological makeup is not sufficient enough to fight back, Antonovsky called that as pathogens, then this person may break down and go toward development of this disease. So Antonovsky said that disease is more about the way our physical or psychological system handles it. When they are not able to handle it, they go toward this disease, and if they have these positive factors, they can move toward this ease. And that's where this whole idea of salutogenous approach talks that what we need to do is develop these resources, because stress will always be there. No life, for nobody it's possible that there is no stress in their life. So what we can do is have these resources. There are two R's here. So have these resources developed so that you can handle these risks which comes in your life in the form of stress. Okay, and what are these resources? First resource is your psychological makeup, where you have the resilience. Second resource is the positive outlook, your attempt to look at the positive aspect of things. Third, having a social support, very important. People who have social support, they have a higher chances of fighting back. And fourth is combination of harmony between all the three previous factors. Okay, so by the way, these factors, these resources, that is not the whole idea of Aronofsky, but salutogenesis approach says that what we need to do as a society is work on these resources. Look at health, disease, and ease as a continuum, because we keep oscillating between these, and we can help people to move toward this, not this, if we can work with them, if we can help them. And that is most important for us, because let's say if we are talking about health of ourselves, then we can work on our own resilience and positive approach. And if we are talking about health for others, then we can look at the social support. You can be support for someone. Okay. Now, moving to the most important part, what can be some of the most common sign and symptoms what we can see to understand if someone needs help? I have just given some of the very important ones here. These are very common thing. The only difference is that at times we ignore them. We just don't pay attention to them. What I'm saying is, what I'm emphasizing on, that please be very careful about these things whenever it happens to anyone around you. First thing, think about, is it just a short term or you are seeing this for quite some time? Is it happening because of some physical condition already there? Possible? Then you can be thoughtful about it, but still let it be there for some time. And if nothing of such is happening, then you should do something about it. So what are these things? Very common. If there is all of a sudden change in a behavior, right now many of the teenagers, small children, they are behaving very differently because many of them have been locked up for such a long. They are not able to live the normal lifestyle, and we are just ignoring it, that because most of us are going through that. That's not good for us. We have seen in last 1.5 years what that has led to for many families. Second, if you find that the person is being very emotional, unreasonably emotional, all of a sudden the person is always on the verge of crying, okay, which is not the usual behavior for this person, then you have to be very careful, because that shows that there is something which a person is not able to handle. Another thing is, if the person is just too irritable all of a sudden, again, okay, so this is not a common pattern of a behavior, but all of a sudden the person has become very irritated, like a small thing, and then it just it's like the switch is off. Okay, then if it is about a student who has all of a sudden changed academic performance, as a teacher, as a mentor, we need to be careful about it. We need to ask what's really happening. Okay. Another thing, people who have really self low esteem, okay, or really less level of confidence, they are actually very susceptible to stress, and handling stress is difficult for them. Social support is very important in that situation. And same goes for dependencies. People who are dependent on others. A very common way of identifying this is that if a person needs opinion of others for every small thing, this is looking okay or not, am I looking okay, my slides are okay, my writing is okay, for every small thing, if somebody is asking opinion of others, this is an indication that when problem will come, they will really need somebody's help to be able to handle that. Another thing again, that for a student community, performance, class attendance, energy level, and performance level, all of these are indications. If there is any abrupt change, as a teacher, we need to be very careful about it. Now, there are three is sort of a magic number here. There are three things which are very important, which gives a very quick clue of something being wrong, something being off. One, if you feel that the person has sudden increase or decrease in appetite, okay, hunger, food. If there is a sudden increase or decrease, like really significant increase or decrease, then something is seriously off, because usually food is a way of handling stress for people. Either they start eating too much or start eating too less. Second, significant increase and decrease in sleep. Okay, that may not be very easily visible for a completely distant observer, but at times that can be seen. So again, sleep quantity and quality, that's another indication. Okay, and third one is the personal hygiene. If all of a sudden a person is not really keeping their hygiene well kept, that's another indication of something seriously going wrong. So if you see any of these in people or in your own self, by the way, you may feel that okay, it's going on okay, I'm okay. But if that is happening to you, be watchful for yourself and people around you. To what can we do in any of these? We have talked a lot about what is health, what is illness, what is mental health, what is mental illness, differentiating between levels, differentiating between the whole ease and disease concept, what can be warning signals, but what to do? What can we do at our level? As people who are not really trained in giving any psychological help, there is something what each one of us can do for ourselves and what we can help other people to have, and that is called as a emotional hygiene. I was talking about physical hygiene, right? Each one of us know that certain things what we need to do: take bath every day, brush your teeth twice, right? Eat nutritional food, wear clean clothes. These are the basic physical hygiene, right? Has anyone taught you about emotional hygiene ever in your life? Ever? Do we ever teach emotional handling or emotional hygiene at school level? No one does, right? Anyways, never late to start. Let's talk about emotional hygiene. First key part of taking care of our emotional health is that we need to pay attention to emotional pain. We have this very bad habit of brushing it under carpet. You are feeling stressed out, you are feeling low, you are feeling pain. There is something which has really hurt you. If you don't talk about it, if you don't do something about it, if you don't really sit and think how it is making you feel, why it is making you feel like that, you are brushing it under the carpet, which is sorry. Yes. Second, stopping emotional bleeding. What does that mean? I'm using all physical analogies here. Okay, so when you are hurt, there's a blood, right? What do? You clean it up, you put some band-aid on it, isn't it? Something similar needs to be done for emotional bleeding. That means if you are hurt because of anything, emotionally hurt, and it's still bleeding, that means it's still hurting, it's still paining. So a very common example: you had a fight with anyone, any close one, or let's say any colleague. They said something hurtful to you. You just get angry at it and maybe react to it and then just done. Nothing else what we do. And sometimes we realize that we are still holding grudge against that person who has said those hurtful things to us, right? And they will keep that may keep accumulating. So if some, let's say you remember, so let's say today you had fight and you are fighting with whatever that person X. Today in that fight you will remember, at least in some sense, last 7 fights you had. That means what? It's somewhere kept within you. It's not gone. It's there inside, bottled up. That means it's bleeding. So what do you need to do? You need to clean it up, put a band-aid on it. That doesn't mean that you have to go to that person and patch up with that person. What I'm talking here about, that when you pay attention to your emotional pain, you look at what is the reason for it. What can you do about it? At least feel the pain, that you are feeling the pain. This is something which is hurtful for you. When you do this exercise, you know what you want to do about it. Maybe you want to ignore that person. Maybe you want to go to that person and talk to that person. Maybe it's your fault that you initiate something and that leads to that, whatever that may be. When you pay attention, you realize the reason for it, or at least how it is making you feel and what you want to do about it. Then protect your self-esteem. Very important. When you are criticizing your own self, we do the maximum harm. It's not what others say. when we accept it and we repeat it to ourselves, what we do is we break our own confidence and we don't pay attention to it. This inner dialogue, this inner voice, the way it influences us, we don't realize it. It's very important. And that also leads to another point, that when we are talking about emotional hygiene for other people, don't say those hurtful things. If we want to give feedback, it needs to be a constructive feedback. We want them to become better. We don't want to make them feel bad. We don't want to mock people, right? So the same thing applies to us. We need to, if not say good things about ourselves, at least not be self-critical. Then battle negative thinking. That's what I'm talking about. Even if somebody else has said something to you, you don't need to accept everything. You have to question it. Somebody may come and tell you that you are not really a good public speaker. Do you really need to accept it? Or maybe you are not, you realize it, but that doesn't mean that you start thinking negative and keep that whole chain started where you say that, okay, I'm not good at this, I'm not good at that, and I'm not good at anything. Not needed, right? You may accept that, okay, I may not be very good at that, but, and this but is very important. So question when something negative is about you, and same applies when you are helping and supporting someone else. Then finally, when you know that the way physical wounds, physical hurt, any pain what you have is the same for the psychological wounds. The pain and the hurt and the wounds you have got, it remains there. I always use an analogy for the psychological pain, and I say that it's almost like a spring, right? You understand the spring. So your psyche is like a spring, and whenever there is a pain which you push, you don't handle it, you don't take care of it, it's like a pressure on that spring. You keep putting pressure, you keep avoiding your emotional pain, that each avoided emotional pain becomes a pressure which keep pushing this spring, and you know there is a level up to which you can push this spring. After that, what will happen? It will spring back, and it will spring back in a very drastic fashion, and that's when emotional outbursts happen in any ways. It can be stressful way, it can be emotional way, it can be a anger outburst, and it can be development of any of psychological disease as well. And that is why it's important to take care of emotional hygiene of ourselves and help others to identify it and work on it. Okay. Now, I would like to address that this whole idea of emotional hygiene is there is a psychologist, his name is Guy Winch, and he talks a lot about emotional hygiene. If anybody is interested in knowing more, you can Google him, and his TED Talks and everything is available. I don't want to get scientific part of it. What I just want to say is that we all are taught about the physical first aid, taking care of. So if you have sprained your neck or any muscle, put a balm on that. If you have a headache, put oil on your head or take medicine. We don't teach psychological first aid. Need it, right? More than the physical pain, we go through emotional pain. So be very, very careful of that. Last part, especially to the teachers here and all the people who are reporting authority to anyone. Okay, so if there are people working under you, if you are a teacher and a mentor for anyone, if you can't do anything else, if you can't help people to do these, help them to pay attention to their emotional wounds, pain, self-esteem, and anything, there is one thing which is core. If nothing else, if you are doing just this, it's actually sufficient. And that is be genuinely emotionally available. Means what? When you are ready to listen, that's enough. What does that mean? Imagine You are sitting in your office, okay? And someone just comes there and sits in front of you, and they start telling you about the problems they are going through. What do? I'll tell you what generally happens. We say it's okay, happens to everyone, things will be better, don't worry, take care. Isn't it? Is that really needed? Swap the role, okay? And think that you are really stressed out. You want to talk it out to someone. You go to somebody's office and you are trying to talk about it, and somebody says these same things to you. How do you feel? Does it make you feel good? No. Many at times you feel that this person doesn't even understand. I'm saying that I'm feeling so much of pain, and this person is saying that it will be okay. Or you have these better than others. Some other people have so much bigger problems. It doesn't help. What helps? When someone comes to you and they are talking about their problems, you are there and you are listening to them. You are really genuinely listening to what they are saying and trying to understand what they are feeling. That's it. More than enough, because whenever we actively listen to others' problem, this feeling, this message goes to them. It makes other person feel that their pain, their problem are actually listened to. That's enough. Nothing more is needed. And when you are emotionally available, people know it. Okay, so you don't need to be someone who is always going on and giving suggestions to people. Not needed. And it's a very common saying, right? Suggestions should be given only when asked. Unasked, unrequited suggestions are never welcome. So take care of emotional hygiene and be emotionally available to people. Now let's talk about, I talked about having a positive mindset. I talked about being available. But being positive, is it always good? John Stuart Mill, a very famous philosopher, he once said, the moment you ask yourself if you are happy, you cease to be happy. If you were happy before that, the moment you ask yourself this question, you remember 10 reasons why you are not happy. So what do we do? There's this whole concept of called toxic positivity. Okay? Toxic positivity is two kinds we can talk, okay, in a very generic sense. To other people, whosoever we see feeling sad or low, we tell them it's okay, stay happy, smile karo, acha lagega. Or it's okay, it will be okay, you take care. We never accept that when somebody is saying something feeling low, we just say that at times it feels low. We don't do that, right? Very common thing, somebody asks you, how are you doing? What's the answer? I am fine. Doesn't matter how not fine you are. Why? Because as a social structure, we have made this sort of a practice where accepting that I am not okay is not acceptable. We need to understand that it's okay to not to be okay. Similarly, when it comes to our own self, the same thing we do to ourselves. When we feel low, when we feel bad, we don't really focus on why this is happening. We try to divert our mind. We try to tell ourselves कि अच्छी चीजें सोचो, positive चीजें सोचो. It's okay. We should do that. But if you're not feeling good, it's also important to see why you are not feeling good. And that's where this whole focus on that avoid pain, avoid stress, and focus only on positive and good things in our life, that's becoming toxic. That's becoming bad for us, problematic for us. I want to show you really this. Look at some of these statements. What we usually say to people. When somebody is sharing their problems with you, and if you say that don't think about it, stay positive, you are actually negating their problem. You are telling them that it's not important, forget about it. Don't worry, be happy. Imagine a person Okay, let's take current example. Imagine a person is saying that, oh my god, I'm corona positive, I have COVID. And you ask, अरे symptom serious है क्या? नहीं symptom serious नहीं है, I have just a mild problem. They say, अच्छा फिर ठीक है, don't worry, be happy, ठीक हो जाएगा. Understand that if a person is coming forward and saying that I have this, that means they have a bit of stress, that they have got a problem. There may be n number of things associated with it which is really problematic for a person. And when you say that don't worry, be happy, what does that mean? That your problems are not really worth discussing. Is that really a good thing? Put yourself in other shoe and see, when somebody says these statements to you, it could be worse. Everything happens for a reason. In that moment when you are feeling pain, it doesn't make you feel good. It's not really what we are looking for when we go and share our problems to others. And that's the key point here. Please think about it. We have a very common habit of saying these things. We need to change the way we react. And possibly toward this right side, what is written, we can use some of those things. Except that yes, you must be going through a hard patch. Accept and say that, I hear you, I'm here for you. That's enough. And here I again always give one example, because this I have always felt. Imagine that when somebody's close one passed away, okay, that happens, right? And when we go to that person, most of us don't know what to say in that situation, right? It's a very difficult situation. You don't know how to extend your support, and most of the time the kind of statements people give, जाने वाला चला गया, ये तो सबके साथ होता है, ठीक हो जाएगा, why are you crying? If you cry, who will take care of others? Put yourself again in that person's position. Are these really helpful statements? I believe and I feel, and what I practice, that instead of making any such comment, because these are not even statements, these are comments which are of no use. These are just social customs which are wrong. We need to change them. If we can't say something which actually makes person feel slightly better, nothing else is needed. We can just go to the person, sit next to them, and maybe touch their back or hold their hands. That's it. Because what you want to say, you want to just express that you are there for them. That's it. They are not alone. But most of us, not many of us do that. Most of us, we know that these kind of statements are said. You also, when you are in a similar situation, you also do that. You need to change it. And I gave you a very common example of this, but there are many such similar situations. We have heard, we have seen other people reacting like that. We also do the same, but it's not helping. It's toxic. It doesn't make the other person feel good. It many a times actually make them feel bad. Many a time people are, when they are in that situation, they feel that, please God, I don't even want to see faces of people, right? Is that the whole logic of those customs? No, it's not. And that's why we need to change it. We don't need this toxic positivity. We don't need this fake positivity. When you are not feeling positive, you don't need to behave positively. If you are not feeling good, you don't need to smile. We don't need to make a culture where we need to be smiling, always cheering. And that's where we as a society, as community, need to change this whole behavior, this whole pattern. Now, last part, because this whole program was focused on more of technology, the recent technology, I thought it's in tune with the whole idea of talking about digital well-being. And I would get into again a lot of detail, but just a bit of a quick view of well-being when we are talking about use of technology for your own self, and if you are a teacher, for students. Okay, so let's talk about it. What is digital well-being? If we talk about the definition, we use that digital well-being is a state of well-being. Well-being means you functioning optimally and you being happy in your life by healthy use of digital technology. Very important, right? Because even before pandemic, the data I am showing to you, that is again before, that includes mostly before pandemic and some part of within pandemic time also. If you see the amount of time we are spending on technology is continuously increasing, is exponentially increasing. And we all are aware of the problems also we are facing due to this. I'm not focusing on the security related issues. I'm not focusing on the fraud, cyber security, and whatnot. I'm focusing more on the kind of impact it has on our psychological health. Okay. So, what is the healthy use of digital technology? When we talk of healthy use of digital technology, one thing which is mostly talked about is screen time. Yes, screen time is problematic, but there is much more than only the screen time. What are those? Now, the way we spend our time on any of the media, any of these technological gadgets, whether that's a computer, whether that's a TV, whether that's a mobile, or any of these devices, what we have realized, and we all know, that it's changing the way we have our relationship, the way we behave in our relationship. And that's where the crux of the problem is. It's not only the screen time. Now, the screen time may lead to certain issues related to mood swings. It may lead to certain issues related to physical problems like eye related problems, your posture related problems, your headache related issues. But those are something which can be handled. But something which we are not really focusing on is 3 points what I have written at bottom, and only 3 I have written. There are many more, but something which is common here is digital identities, cyberbullying, and swiping right. What are they? Now, most of you will have a profile on social medias, right? Either Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, Instagram, whatnot. Okay, WhatsApp, obviously, many of us are there. Think of it, how many of you are actually, you appear on these social media platforms the way you really are? Most of us post our picture on Facebook or Instagram, the glorified, the rosy picture of our life. Now let's reverse the whole thing. How many of times you have seen pictures on, let's say, Facebook of any of your friends going to some places, or even during this pandemic time having a clean house where there are kids? Even during this whole time there are like happy faces, or you have seen husband and wife congratulating themselves on anniversary on Facebook. Why is that needed? When you look at others pictures of that happy, how many of times you have asked yourself ki are meri life to, they have such a good life, they go to so many places, oh my god, their dresses are so amazing, this person looks amazing, his beard is so amazing, how did he groom that? I know that's happening right now with many men, and I have seen that in my family, so I'm taking that example and maybe that's applicable to you. How many times you have asked that? Why this comparison? So these digital identities where we are not really projecting what we are, the way our life is, projecting something else. And what are we projecting? That is something that wishful, the way we want to see our life, we are projecting that there. Think of it. Also, we look at others that projected life and compare it with our life and feel bad about it. So digital identities, those fake identities which we are creating, those rosy pictures of our identities what we are creating, it's neither good for our own self and neither good in terms of a comparison. Another part which is very important for students is cyberbullying. Very common. On WhatsApp, on Facebook, on gaming platforms, it's very common, and especially you will find that bullying to females is much more rampant than bullying to boys. So gender angle is again there. What can you do as a teacher there? You can educate the students on healthy use of digital devices. And last part is swiping right. I don't know how many of you know about it, how many of you are actually aware, but all these romantic relationship sites, okay? One is very common. Recently, I have seen Tinder doing aggressive marketing. I don't know how many of you know about Tinder or similar devices. These are dating apps, and the kind of culture it perpetuates, the way it's changing the whole most basic fabric of relationship, it's completely unhealthy. I'm not saying anything against any of these companies. I'm talking about the unhealthy, unintentional, unconscious use of any of these. Any platform, any device is not wrong in itself, bad in itself. The problem comes when we mindlessly look at those, when we mindlessly engage with those. And that's the problematic thing. And that all of these has led to development of concept which is called technoference. Technoference is the term given by Randall McDonald. He's again a technologist, and he says that these technologies, the way they have interrupted our life, our sleeping patterns, our habits, our behavior with other people around us, our parenting, then it's problematic. How many of us actually eat together as a family? In restaurants, you will see that five friends sitting together and each one of them busy in their phone. They are sitting together. Not only friends, that has happened to families. Why not spend time together? That is technoference, and that reduces digital well-being. The point is it always bad? Aren't there any good things about these technologies? No, it's not. There's always something good. What we need to do is we need to choose the right platform. Why we are choosing a particular platform, we need to know, and accordingly we choose it. We need to keep the reason in mind. We need to create an offline and online balance. That's the whole debate about screen time. That screen time today is becoming a necessity, and possibly that will become a part of our life after this pandemic in new normal. So we need to understand that if this screen time has become a necessity, how do we balance it with offline? Because that is something which is a natural state for us, our body. Our body is designed like that. Also, socializing is the most important thing. If we are socializing only on digital medium, we are missing a big part of it. Digital medium socializing never satisfies the social needs what we have. It contributes to it, no denying that. But the social well-being I was talking about, it's not completely there with that. And digital well-being, healthy use of these digital mediums for us and for others. That's what we need education on. We all need to learn that. So there are many positive uses of technologies, social medias, everything. But we need to use it for that. And we need to avoid what's creating problem. So that's digital well-being for you. And last part again, I'm going to show you one video where I want to talk about that why are we in denial? We all accept mental health problems are there. We all accept that may need help, but when it really happens around us, we are not really much aware and we don't really take appropriate action. Let's watch this video because this gives us some important insight into the problem. And I'll request Dr. Abhishek to tell me that again the voice of the video is coming or not.
लोग बोलते हैं मैं बदला बदला सा लगता हूँ.
So, message here is I'll repeat the same what was there in the video, that serious mental illness requires help. But that doesn't mean that even the common forms of mental illness, those people are not cannot function in society. Because yes, depression, mood disorder, some of these are very common worldwide and also in India. What we need to do is support them, work with them, and understand the distinction between this. So from my side, that's all. I'm thankful for all of you to listening to this. And if there are any question, anything else, I'm happy to answer those. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, ma'am, for this great session. So, if any of the participants has any questions, you can ask your question. Okay, sorry, the mic was not allowed for participants. Now I have allowed it, so you can unmute yourselves and ask. Okay, I'll also like stop the live streaming of the session. So if anybody has any questions, so maybe they are hesitant to go live on YouTube, they can ask. Okay, so now I
Or
want to
maybe I have given so much for food for thought that they are still